read your book online,
Uh-huh.
parts of it, and you wrote about having intuitive sense,
Yeah.
almost like a psychic sense. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, I don't think I'm psychic. I just, originally I didn't have a base for my comments. They sort of came from, it just dropped in.
Okay.
Now, because I've, had thousands and thousands of clients,
Yeah.
as soon as I'm talking to somebody and I hear, and for instance, in my workshop, I ask 3 questions. Who are you? What are you doing? What do you want from today? And from those 3 questions come me doing 2 days worth of, tinkering.
Mm-hmm.
And from the tinkering, the arguing, I might argue with somebody. I might make them argue, piss them off on purpose.
Why do you make somebody argue with you?
Because I have to engage their spirit.
Okay.
And as you know, you were one of my arguments in the last group. So as you know, people, engage with me like they defend their belief systems. And from that sort of conflict that I stimulate, they wake up.
You touch them.
I'm not even talking about touching them. I'm talking about the conversation stuff that
You
just
engage
pisses
their
everybody
spirit,
off.
the fire in them.
Yeah.
Get them on fire.
Well, I know how to harness whatever there is.
Okay.
And where'd that come from? Somebody teach it to me? Nope. My father probably from, I sat in a fishing boat with him for 3 years. All summer and spring,
What was that like for you?
That was great. Talking about anything I wanted to say, sometimes sitting there quietly, just knowing that it was okay. Nobody else had that. They spend an hour with their father and they remember it.
Yeah.
I spent thousands of hours with my father.
What do you remember most about him?
That I was okay. So basically, I give permission and I stimulate hope. Hope in any of it. I could come through Tai Chi, although in order to get in my Tai Chi class, you have to work your way through my Qigong first. In any format. I don't care if it's via DVD or video or whether it's in my workshop or whatever. It doesn't matter. But when we're practicing Qigong at the end of my Tai Chi class and you're projecting out to the universe what you want, you can't do that unless you learn the method, and I'm not teaching it in Tai Chi class because that's not where I do it. So you have to be done already before you even start my Tai Chi class, which is really hard.
What are some interesting, you don't have to mention any names, but some interesting experiences you've had, like in your book, I read something about your healing a shaman or an Indian man.
Apache medicine man. His name was Nick Thompson. He was in Sibique, Arizona.
Yeah.
I was hired over the phone to treat him. 79. I wrote my book in 1988, 89, and 90.
Okay.
So remember that I wrote the book many years, 3-4 years, before the video was even an idea. It's not like, so even on my video I say, use my book, but you don't have to use my book. I had no idea how good my video was going to be when I was making it. I mean, I was just doing what came naturally. So I treated the Apache medicine man. He was paralyzed when I got there. He couldn't speak English, and I treated
You're talking about it like it's no big deal.
It's no big deal.
You changed his life.
I changed his life, and he
saved his life.
And he gave a lecture in 1993 that's listed on the internet. And I treated him in 79. He was already laying there for 6 months, paralyzed on half his body, unable to speak English. Yeah. And I asked my acupuncture teacher before I left Chicago, because one of my students was driving me there in my car, what should I do? And he said, figure it out when you get there. So basically that's what I do. I figure it out when I get there. Still.
But that wasn't, was that your first time healing somebody that traumatically hurt?
Oh, well, I'd done a couple strokes, but, I mean, my balls are really big, so when I was called and asked, what can you do? I said, I'll do my best. My best is good. This was in 79. I didn't really have a track record yet. I'd been treating for 5 years, but 5 years was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I was still only 27 years old. So we went there, and when we got there, me and my friend Ron, we got there, and they came up to the car, and they looked at us, they looked at me, and they looked at him.
You're a kid.
They looked in the, they looked in the car. They looked at him, they looked at me, they looked in the car. I said, "What are you looking for?" And they said, "Where's the Chinese guy?"
Okay. Oh boy.
So I fixed him. In fact, he promised me about a week into his treatments that he was going to walk before I left, and he did.
Wow.
That's normal.
Is that? I mean, have you had
This is what I expect. Even I expected it then, even though I didn't have a track record for it. Now I have a huge track record for this.
Yeah.
Does that mean I want to have 1,000 stroke patients? No. I pick who I treat.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite client?
I had Jerry. I kept him alive for 2 years. He was 87 years old when he died about 2 years ago. I saw him twice a week. They wanted to cut his feet off.
Yeah.
He's on my website doing a TV commercial for me. He said, "Gary Clyman saved my feet." He's 87. He was a year older than my father.
Mm.
And I kept him alive. In fact, at his funeral, his daughter thanked me publicly for her father dying with his feet. They wanted to cut them off. He had severe, no, he didn't have diabetes. He had neuropathy because he had open heart surgery, and they didn't turn him over because they thought he was going to die.
Oh, okay.
So they just let him sit there. But I fixed him. He was walking. I got him walking quickly. I mean, I have a ton of stories.
Can you say another one?
Yeah, in 1980, I was in Wright Junior College, and my anatomy teacher, Mrs. Scarbeck, knew that I was a healer. This was 80, all right? She said, she asked me for a favor if I would treat this girl, Christina.
Okay.
And she would schedule me empty rooms where no one would bother us. So I was doing acupuncture and doing all my tricks on Christina. What had happened, she had open heart surgery, and they dropped her off the table and they broke her hip while she was unconscious. So she had hip trouble, couldn't walk, and had her arm like this from all the cutting for the open heart surgery, and she was only 19 years old. This was 80. This happened a couple of years earlier already. So she had the special key, she had the wheelchair, she had the elevator, she had the CT, the special, disabled truck that picked her up and drove her back and forth to school.
What was the connection between the teacher and the girl? Were they
friends?
Related? Oh, okay.
She just felt sorry for her. So she asked me to treat her, and I treated her. And after a couple of treatments, she started using her hand, and a couple more treatments. I got her to put her books in the chair and push the wheelchair. Well, after a few months of treatment, she ended up giving up the wheelchair, giving up the elevator key, giving back her special transportation, ID or whatever it was, because she started walking to school and taking the bus. And then about 15 years later, somebody I know was giving a Tai Chi demonstration at a senior citizens place in Skokie, and a girl stood up and told her story about being treated by me, and it was Christina.
Wow.
And it turns out that she was a physical therapist. She became a physical therapist since I treated her.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's a good one.
That's really awesome.
All right, so I don't want to make this interview too long. People are going to start falling asleep. In closing, what's important is people wake up and realize just because you weren't told you can, you can. You can! All you got to do is practice Qigong. And when you suck in more, and you suck in more, it's like putting 5 pounds of something into a 2-pound bag. So you become more than you are. And everybody can do it. You don't have to be special. You don't have to be athletic. You don't have to be gifted. I hate that word. All you got to do is go to my website, qigong.com, spelled CHIKUNG.com, and feel free to call me.